People say life can change in just one night, but Violet never believed it until it happened to her. She sat at her desk inside the wide, noisy office of Delta Media House in Asaba, her eyes glued to the computer screen, typing out reports that nobody seemed to appreciate. Around her, other staff were laughing, gisting, and sometimes mocking her for being too serious with her work. But Violet didn't mind them. She was just 28 years old, tall, slim, and beautiful in her own quiet way. She was also the kind of person who believed that hard work would one day pay off, but in that office it never did. Her immediate boss, Mr. Ebuka, was a man in his early 40s with a round stomach and a sharp tongue. He loved to boast about his power in the company and how no one could be promoted without his approval. He often called Violet into his office to make suggestive comments, pretending to be joking but always meaning something else. One Friday evening, after everyone had closed, he asked her to wait behind. Violet thought maybe, finally, her years of effort had been noticed. Maybe he was going to tell her that the promotion she had been praying for had been approved. Her heart beat fast with expectation as she knocked on his office door. "Come in," he said, leaning back in his chair with a slight smile. Violet entered, clutching her file to her chest. "Good evening, sir." Ebuka folded his arms and looked at her from head to toe. "Violet, you know you are one of the best workers we have here, but you also know that in this company, it is not only hard work that brings promotion." Her eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, sir?" He stood up, walked slowly around his desk, and stopped right in front of her. His breath smelled of alcohol as he whispered, "If you want to rise in this place, you have to please me first. Sleep with me, and the position you want will be yours." The file in Violet's hand dropped to the floor. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. She had heard rumors of other female workers being used this way, but she had prayed it would never come to her. Her cheeks grew hot with shame, and tears filled her eyes. "Sir, I can't do that," she said with a trembling voice. Ebuka smirked. "Then remain where you are. You will never get promoted here unless you bend for me." That night, Violet walked home under the street lights of Asaba, her legs weak but her heart burning. She felt humiliated, crushed, and angry. She thought of resigning, but deep down, she hated the idea of living defeated. Then, just a week later, her life turned upside down. One morning, while she was preparing to go to work, her phone rang. It was a strange number with an international code. When she answered, a lawyer from London introduced himself and told her something that made her sit on the edge of her bed in shock. Her late uncle, whom she had only seen a few times as a child, had passed away. He left behind businesses, houses, and money, and since he had no wife or children, Violet was named as the only heir to everything. At first, she thought it was a scam, but after days of communication, documents, and even a flight to Lagos for confirmation, Violet realized it was real. She had suddenly become rich, far richer than she had ever dreamed, but money alone was not enough for her. She wanted something deeper: justice. Instead of quitting her job, Violet decided to play a different game. With the help of financial advisors, she secretly bought controlling shares of Delta Media House. It was easy, since the company was looking for investors and her lawyers handled everything quietly. Within weeks, she had become the majority owner of the very place where she had been humiliated. When the board finally announced the news, every staff gathered in the conference hall, whispering and wondering who this new owner would be. Ebuka, proud and confident as always, sat at the front row, ready to meet his new big oga. But when Violet walked into the hall, dressed in a fine navy blue suit, with her head held high and a confident smile on her face, silence filled the room. Mouths fell open. People rubbed their eyes as if they were dreaming. And then she stood at the podium and said, "Good morning, everyone. My name is Violet. From today, I am the new owner and your new boss." The room erupted with shock. Some clapped nervously, some just stared in disbelief. But the most interesting face was Ebuka's. His pride vanished. His mouth shook as he struggled to smile, but his eyes held onto the truth, fear, shame, and regret. Violet met his eyes and smiled calmly, a smile that carried the sweet taste of victory. Ebuka sat frozen in his chair, his palms sweating. He had never imagined that the same Violet he mocked, the same woman he tried to use, would one day stand in front of him as his boss. He forced himself to clap with the others, but his hands trembled. Violet's speech was short and sharp. "I have worked here as one of you. I know the pains, the struggles, and the frustrations, but from today, things will change. Hard work will be rewarded. No one will be forced to do what is against their will just to rise. This company will become a place of respect, not fear." Her words were met with loud applause, especially from the women in the office who knew exactly what she meant. Some of them glanced at Ebuka with hidden smiles. After the meeting, staff surrounded Violet, congratulating her with excitement and shock. People who once ignored her suddenly became friendly, praising her intelligence and beauty. Violet smiled politely, but in her heart, she remembered how these same people had laughed behind her back when she was just an ordinary worker. Later that day, she called for a private meeting with the management team. Ebuka sat at a long table, his face stiff, his arrogance gone. Violet noticed how he avoided her eyes, pretending to be busy with his pen. "Mr. Ebuka," she said calmly, "I want you to give me a detailed report of how you've been running this department. I need it on my desk first thing tomorrow morning." He swallowed hard and nodded quickly. "Yes, ma, I will prepare it." For the first time, he called her ma. The sound was like music to Violet's ears. Days turned into weeks, and Violet settled into her new role as boss. She introduced new rules, transparent promotion processes, fair salaries, and training opportunities for staff. Gradually, the atmosphere in the office changed. People worked harder because they finally felt seen and valued. But Ebuka remained uneasy. Every time he walked past Violet's office, he felt sweat gathered on his forehead. He feared that she would expose him. He feared she might fire him publicly and destroy his reputation. One afternoon, he gathered courage and went to her office. He knocked softly. "Come in," Violet said without looking up from her laptop. He stepped in, his shoulders bent. "Good afternoon, ma." Violet looked up, her eyes calm but piercing. "Yes, Mr. Ebuka." He cleared his throat. I just want to say I am sorry for everything. I was foolish. I didn't treat you with respect. Please, don't hold it against me." For a moment, Violet said nothing. She simply leaned back in her chair and studied him. This was the same man who once felt powerful enough to insult her dignity. Now he was begging for mercy like a child. Finally, she spoke. "Mr. Ebuka, do you know what hurt me the most? It wasn't just your words. It was the fact that you thought my worth was tied to your bed. You thought without you I could never rise. But here we are." He bowed his head, ashamed. "I should fire you," Violet continued, her voice steady. "But I won't. Not yet. You will stay here and work under me. You will follow the rules. And every day you will see me in this chair you never imagined I could sit on. That will be your lesson." Ebuka's heart sank. Being under her authority was worse than being sacked. He nodded quickly. "Yes, ma. Thank you, ma." When he left the office, Violet smiled to herself. She didn't just want revenge, she wanted transformation. Keeping Ebuka under her watch was a reminder to everyone that power can change hands in ways nobody expects. As weeks passed, Violet's success spread across Asaba. Newspapers carried the story of the young woman who bought her boss's company. People in the city admired her courage, and she became a role model to many young women who had once thought that they could only rise by giving in to pressure. But with her new status came new challenges. Business rivals who felt threatened by her rise began plotting against her. Some old friends who once ignored her returned, pretending to care but really seeking favors. Even some relatives she barely knew started visiting her house, begging for money. Through it all, Violet remained strong. She had learned the hard way that respect is not given, it is earned, and she was determined never to let anyone, man or woman, belittle her again. But Ebuka was not done. Deep inside, he was boiling with anger and shame. He couldn't stand seeing Violet in power while he, the once proud manager, now bowed like a servant. At night, he sat in his living room, drinking and plotting. If he couldn't control Violet, maybe he could find a way to bring her down. And so, a new battle began, one Violet didn't see coming. Ebuka could not sleep at night. Every time he saw Violet sitting in that big office chair, giving orders, signing documents, and commanding respect, his heart burned with jealousy. He felt humiliated every single day, so he began to plan her downfall. He started whispering among the staff, spreading lies that Violet had only bought the company because of sugar daddies and not her own strength. He even contacted some business rivals, offering to leak company secrets if they could help him get Violet removed. But Violet was wiser than she thought. She had surrounded herself with smart advisors and loyal staff who respected her leadership. Whenever Ebuka tried to spread rumors, they quickly reached Violet's ears. At first, she stayed quiet, watching him dig his own grave. Then one morning, she called for a general meeting. All staff gathered in the conference hall. Ebuka sat nervously, sweat dripping down his back. Violet stepped forward, holding a file in her hand. Her voice was calm but firm. "Loyalty and honesty are the foundation of this company. Unfortunately, not everyone here understands that." She opened the file and began to read out evidence of Ebuka's secret dealings, emails, messages, and proof of his betrayal. The entire hall gasped. Ebuka stood up, shaking. "No, it's a lie. She set me up." But Violet's evidence was clear. The board members glared at him in disgust. For years, he had tormented others, thinking he was untouchable. Now, his shame was public. "Mr. Ebuka," Violet said, her eyes steady, "I gave you a chance to change. Instead, you chose to continue in your old ways. As of today, you are officially dismissed from this company." Security guards stepped forward. Ebuka struggled, begging, "Please, Violet, please don't do this to me. I have a family. I was wrong, I admit, but don't destroy me." Violet looked at him for a long moment. Once his words had broken her spirit. Once he had stood over her, demanding her dignity in exchange for a promotion. Now the tables had turned. "She destroyed yourself, Ebuka," she said softly. "This is not revenge, this is justice." With that, the guards led him out. The office burst into applause. Some staff even had tears in their eyes. It was as if years of silent suffering had finally lifted. From that day, Violet's name carried weight across Delta State. She wasn't just a young woman who became rich overnight. She was a woman who turned her pain into power. She built Delta Media House into one of the most respected companies in Asaba, known for fairness and excellence. But beyond the office, Violet also learned to live again. She reconnected with her widowed mother in her family home, bought her a beautiful house, and made sure she never lacked anything. She also began to open doors for young women in Asaba, sponsoring them to study, learn skills, and build their own futures so that no one would have to go through what she went through. And as for love, Violet didn't rush. Many men came around, attracted by her beauty and wealth, but she was patient. She wanted someone who would value her heart, not her money. One evening, as the sun set over the Niger River, she stood on the balcony of her home, watching the orange sky. She thought about her journey, from tears in Ebuka's office to becoming the boss of everything he once controlled. Her lips curved into a gentle smile. She had been humiliated, but she rose. She had been underestimated, but she conquered. And now, she was living proof that no one could stop a woman who refused to be broken. For Violet, the story had only just begun.